So basically, when you say that from customer, select this column. Yeah, that's okay, Dean. You have this table customer, you are joining it with the sales rep table on the two columns with the c.rep id and sr.rep id. Basically, what you are doing, you are creating aliases. And what is aliases? You are naming the customer as a C instead of the whole table name customer, which is fine. You can put C as an alias. And for sales rep, you have SR, which is okay, which is also good. So you can put the aliases, and aliases are good. It makes your life easier and the shorthanded. Now, other thing is, if I am going to say that inner join, basically when you join one table with another table, behind the scenes what SQL is doing is basically is doing this for you. You basically said, you basically only said inner join sales rep. Behind the scenes it is doing, and you don't have to type it, but I'm just showing you that essentially when you just say the whole table name, you are basically saying that select all the rows, for all the rows and all the columns from sales rep table. That is basically happening, but that's okay. I mean, just wanted to give you a in depth what is happening. And if you run this query, you will still get the same answer. But basically, if you remove this, and basically that was it. So as many inner joins that you have, each time you just mention a table name, basically you are saying select all from that table. Okay. I'm not going to disclose the solution for other two queries, and I'm not interested in that. So what I'm going to do now, I know in the actual script, if I go to the actual script of this table, if I go to this this um, table, and instead of, I'm going to drop this invoice table, and instead of the date, I'm going to change it to a date time. I'm going to change it to a date time. That's what I essentially did. I changed it to a date time, and then I inserted the same records. But what will happen now? When I will run the query, not too much drastic, but wanted to show you, if I'll go to the KMTA database and if I go to the invoice and select the rows, it has actually added the date and the time at the end as well, because sometimes you need to know the transaction, not only transaction date, but also the what time that transaction has happened. Because I'm not providing any time in here explicitly, it is going to assume that it is at the start of the day, which is 000000, right? 0.00. But in case if I going to provide the date and time, and how can I get, okay, let's do this way. I'm going to insert one more guy. Let's say if I'm going to do this, because this is the database that I'm going to play with a lot. So you will see that I'm going to add few more rows. So on 2019, I'm going to add for for the invoice number 14233, maybe 14238, I'm going to add a new invoice, and that is going to be for this customer 616, and I'm going to say, let's say, instead of date, I'm going to say get date. And what is get date going to be doing? Let's look at that. What is get date? So that's a built-in SQL function. So if I'll just say select get date, bracket open, bracket close. Okay, if I'll do this and just run this query, let's see what happens. It is giving me today's date as well as right now the time is 13:46, 1:46, whatever, and 12 seconds and millisecond, whatever. So let's say if I want to insert a new record for this invoice number, and I'll just run that. So get date will get current date and put it in there. Instead of this date or instead of hard coded date, I want to insert just this date. So what I will do, if I'll insert now a new record and I'll go and run this query on the invoice, you will see another record being added. But this time, date will have the date and time both. You see this? So 14238 invoice number is created for the customer, blah blah, for the customer 616. But this is the important piece, the date, right? And I can see the time as well is added here. And transaction, for transactions, date and time, and the last edit date and time, last edited, who edited this record last time. Sometimes your CEO will come and ask you who edited this record last time, when was the last time this invoice was edited. You will see the date and time both there, and you will probably will have to have a clerk who created that invoice. This is a missing column in here, but I would like to have clerks table in which I have all the clerks, and then I will have another column here called clerk ID, so I can relate it with the clerk and I can find out who was the clerk who last edited that invoice on which invoice date. So that's an invoice history kind of thing. But I can see now that this is the date. So now if I run this query, I'm getting this invoice date and time. So if I want to just see the invoice date and truncate the time out of it, because I just wanted to see the date only, I will need to type cast as date. So if I'll put a cast as date, it will remove the time and it will just add the date. But let me run this first. When I'll run this, the time is gone and it is converted into, it is casted into as date. So it is forcefully casted a date time column into just date. So it is forcefully casted it. So if I just say that I want to know what date, because the field is date and time field, but I wanted to know what date it happened. So time is not the matter here. I can cast forcefully the whole date with the date and time to just only the date. And if I run it, it gives me this answer. But problem here is this small problem, that is showing me the column name is nothing, no column name. So very easy to fix. Once I have casted it, I can put it the name as control V. So this as is for forcefully casting it. So you use the cast function, and in the cast function you pass the column name and which data type you want it to cast to, and then you can show it as a, you can show the name on top. So this is just an alias of the column, because after I cast it, it doesn't know what's the name of the column it should give it to, because it's casting it and it is asking you what name you want me to do it. So I just said, okay, leave it as an invoice date as well, or I can give it as an invoice date 1 or invoice date 2, whatever I want. But now if I put it, I can get it back as an invoice date. So there is a function called cast, and I'm going to show Google that cast in SQL Server. So cast, I think I found it on W3 Schools. I'm going to paste it here. So cast this. So now what it does, converts a value of an integer data type, or converts the cast function converts a value of any type into a specified data type. We will also look at convert, but let's focus ourselves on cast. What does cast is doing? So this is the integer or a float value 25.65. I want to cast it as a varchar. It will be converted forcefully into a varchar character. This is the date, and if I want to cast this as a date and time, when I will run this and try it yourself, what will happen? It will automatically add the time in front of this date. So let's try this one out first, because we were actually doing this. So let's say if I run this, this is only a date at the moment, but if I'll say run this, it is actually added the time in front of it, but it doesn't know what time to add, so actually it ended up at 0000. But if we would have, we will not, we are just forcefully converting one data type into another data type. So basically, if I go ahead and read this in general terms, what does cast function do? Cast function converts a value of any type into a specified data type. So all the what you need to mention, you need to cast bracket on the column name or the value, then which what type you want, what type you want to convert it to as a varchar, and then it will do it for you. So if I'll run this now, let's see. This 25.65 is an integer to it, but this 25.65 is actually a string. It is not an integer. So let me try that out and prove that out. Let's see. I'm just going to play with it. Let's see if it helps. Yes, look at this. What I'm doing is I have a value 25.65. I converted it into a text value, and then I'm trying to add a +1 to 25.65. This will not be allowed because this data type is converted first into a varchar, and then I'm trying to add +1 to it. But if I would not have done it, and I have just kept it like this, obviously I will have an answer, because, and run it now, I will have an answer 26.65, because it knows how to add two integers. This is an integer or a float or a currency or a number value, and then it adds it. But as soon as I converts it into a varchar, it becomes a string, and I cannot add the value to the string. So date, so doing that way is also okay. Let's look at the convert. I think convert and cast works as the same, but let's look at a difference here. Almost similar. Converts function converts a value to this. If I would be very curious, then I can do that, but have a look at this way of data. I'm just going to do this. Let's go copy this one and show it. Let's go into this one. But first read the chart out. So let's look at that. Mostly whenever I've used it, I have used to convert a date into a varchar. So convert function takes the input or put three things in practice. So cast and converts are mostly used interchangeably. I have used them both. I have sometimes used cast, I've used convert, similar idea. So let's look at that. I want to convert into a varchar. So first, in which data type I want to cast it into. What is the value, or what is the column name that I want to cast the value? And what is 101? Let's look at that. 101 means, if I go up a little bit, 101 will convert it into mmdd/yyyy. If I would have 1000, it will be Monday date, oh sorry, month, sorry, month, date, and year, and then this way. So each time if I'll type it, it will give me a little different output. So let's do this. Let's play with it. Copy. Let's go ahead and in here. And if I say run this part, it converted this into 20108. Okay. So for my chart, 101 is what? 101 should be yielding me this way of date format, but it is still giving me okay. So let's go ahead and do 100. And if it doesn't do that, I will take it to SQL Server. So it's not working here. Let's take it to SQL Server because I don't agree with this in here. We're just gonna paste it in the Control V. So let's run this. Let's run this into 101. Why it is not okay? Let's go ahead and check my chart because I know for a fact because I've used it in the past that it has converted it for me. 103. Let's see 103. 103. So it is not working for me at all. It is stuck with that. But I know when I have used it in the past, it has actually changed my date into the format that I like, whether I like it mmddyy or yyyy.mm.dd. As soon as I write that number, I see that in the output section that it is converted. But right now, as I stand, I'm not seeing that happening. But let's see. Okay, get date. What does get date do? Gets the current date. Let's see if it does that. Yeah, here we go. So I have this date, today's date, but it is converted into dd mm yyyy. And what it says for 103. So I don't know, for some reason for that day it wasn't working. And 103 means dd mm yyyy. If I'll go and change it into 1110, let's say, so I should have mm dash dd dash yyyy. 110. I can run this. So see, mm dash dd dash yyyy. So because it was a hard-coded date, it wasn't picking it up. But if I would have a date, so if I will be you, I can use this as well sometimes. So if I'll just copy this, the template is ready. I'll take this template to my select statement. Where was my select statement? If I'll open up the invoice and run this here. So my date is showing up as yyyy dash mm dash dd. Can I convert this? Yes, I can convert this. So what I will do, if I will be you, I will go end and I'll say Control V and say as invoice underscore date as the same column name as the one below, and then I'll put a comma here because that is what is missing. And then I converted this, and I don't need this invoice date because I'm going to convert it. And now if I use the convert function, it is actually, my date is actually being forcefully converted into a varchar and being shown as the format which I like. If I run this now, and 1110 is what? Let me remind. 1110 is mm dash dd dash yy. So SQL Server knows about your dates and it will automatically convert it for you. So see this, It is now converting mm-dd-yyyy. So how you want to how you want to display it, it automatically converts it for you. So it all depends upon your company's preferences. Usually the best way to show the date is this way always, which is the SQL Server way as well. Select get date. This is the best way. YYYY dash DD dash MM dash DD. I always keep my system date in also in the same format at the bottom. This is the SQL Server way, and I always create my documents like that as well, with the date, with the year, month, and date as this format. And we can convert it using the cast function and whatnot. So you see that I forget one thing. Sorry about that. I can put this column is actually the invoice date. So instead of get date, I should be invoice date. So that invoice date that we are seeing here, and actually I should put one more column here, just so you have side by side, everything side by side, so you can look at it as well. So this is the invoice date, and this is this, and I'll just say invoice date converted. There's nobody stopping me to have an alias, so I just added an alias so that I can see this is the converted date and this is the actual date. So I will run it. This is the actual date, which was the invoice date, and this is the date that I converted into a different format. So the format is changed, date is still the same. Format is changed, date is still the same, and it is intelligent enough to know which part is the date and which part is the month. So it is not mingling the date with the month or the month with the date. No, even if it will be less than 12 at both sides. So you know 11/11. So you might think that November 11th, it will know that you are talking November will go first, 11 of the November will go first, and 11 of the date will go second. It will automatically do it for you without any confusions. Okay, going to close this. So convert and cast. You should know how to use those convert and cast. And convert and cast, I just give you an idea, but they are very deep topic. Mostly you will be converting dates. You are casting date time into date, or you are casting um, date into date time, just for matching purposes. Because when you have a date time, you cannot compare it with the date because it has an um, trailing date and time at the end, so you cannot compare date time with date. So you'll have to cast everything in that column into a date and then compare dates with dates. So want to show few more things. There's a feature called import export wizard. So these are some things that you will not find in the book. So if I'll go beyond that, I'm actually telling you the practical things that do happen in the real life. So if I want to export the data out of SQL Server, one way to do that is right click on it, select top 1000 rows. Here you go. Select all. right click, copy with header. You have this data on your clipboard. If it would be 5,000 rows or 60,000 rows, it will still be copied. You go to Excel, workbook, and then paste it. You have this data now. There is a little bit of problem with it, is that it has converted my agent ID 05 to 5, and and decimal points is lost. 500.00 is now converted into 500. A little loss of precision, but other than that, I am fine, right? This is okay, but this is also not okay because I don't want to lose my data. My data might be coming from, if I am given a project where I have to get the data from legacy system and put it into SQL Server. So my recent guy who is going to retire has put the representative ID like this. For the past 15 years, he has been entering, saving the IDs like this instead of keeping the representative ID like this 05. And Excel actually does that. If you have a 05, so in SQL Server, you know that 05 is not equals to 5. They are two different things. If you're talking in terms of varchar, 05 is not equivalent to 5. And if you are writing a query to select all the customers that were dealt by representative ID 05, you will miss out on those, because here, if you think on a high level, my ID is 05. I always say my ID is 05, but other person says that my ID is 5. In SQL Server, 05 does not mean 5. They are two different things. So when you select the records that I want to see everything by the agent ID number 05, yeah, in the conversation you might say, if you are having a coffee with someone, you might say easily, my agent ID is 5. But in actual terms, your SQL Server know you by the ID 05, not by ID number 5. So if you are selecting the records for the ID number 5, you will probably not be getting, or you will not be getting any records, or you will be getting some record missed out, because 05 and 5 are two different IDs. And if you have entered them in the system in a mixed pattern of 5 and 05, you will either miss out on 5, or you will either have missed out on 05, right? Or you have to put in explicitly where the ID is 5 or ID is equals to 05. Then it will say that, okay, Kashan is asking me to pick up all the stuff for ID number 5 and ID is equals to 05. Then it will pick it up. But you have to explicitly mention OR case with it. But for ease of use, I want to just mention 05, right? I don't want to change all my queries from 5 to 05 and 6 to 06 and whatnot. I want all the cases to be taken care of. So sometimes copy and paste is misleading. So if you are bringing the data, so somebody gives you the data, hey Kashan, can you bring this data for me in the database? I need to fix the data at the source level. I'm not going to fix the data after I bring it into SQL Server. Data has to be fixed in the source level. So whoever is providing you the file, first ask them to fix that file, or if they are not willing to do this, if your department is doing it, then your job is to fix the data at the at the source. Before you bring the Excel file in, fix the data there instead of bringing in and then fixing it afterwards, because it creates a lot of other headaches. And that is the job of database administrator, that you are not only just writing the queries, but you are also bringing in the data from different legacy system, from different sources. So if I am the government, I will be, and people are filing the data from TurboTax, or they are filing the data from Wealth Simple, or they are filing the data from uh, Inuit, or whatever the other tax softwares are. When you file your taxes, whether it's Wealth Simple or TurboTax or other software, all give them the responsibility that if I am the CRA, I will say, I don't care how you will send in the data. This is the format of the data that I need before I import it into my system or apply into my system. So they have to comply with your standards instead of you comply with your standards after you get the data. You see what I'm saying? So bring the less headache to yourself. Ask those companies to fix the data at their end before they send it to me. That is electronic data interchange, and this electronic data interchange between the companies has to be clean as possible, so you are not missing out on the details. So I'm saying that what I'm saying is that usually you don't want to have loss of data like that. So one way to do this is copy and paste it, which is okay for a quick analysis, that's fine. But there is a tool in Microsoft SQL Server which is called Import Export Wizard. So there's a 64-bit tool as well and 32-bit tool as well. Let's run a 32-bit tool for now. So when I run this, and I'm sure you have it as well, Import Export Wizard, which is 32-bit. If I'll click on this tool and say next, it is asking me what is the data source. So I'll say that the data source is SQL Server. So any of these SQL Server ones will work, whether it is Microsoft OLEDB driver for SQL Server or whether it is Microsoft provider for SQL Server or this one. SQL Server will work because your main source is SQL Server. So let's try this one out. It is asking me what is the server name. So what is the server name? I can get my server name really quick. Right click on it, click connect. Here is the server name. I'll copy this. This is my server name and it's a Windows authentication. Server name, Windows authentication. You don't need mixed authentication at the moment. We are not working with that. And here you go. It is showing you Kimte, master, model, MSDB. Don't touch any of these. We are just working with Kimte database. Next. It is showing you, it is asking you what will be the destination. So I'm going to say, I want to export it into an Excel file. It is asking me where is that Excel file located. The Excel file is of the version very old, 1997 to 2003, probably very old. So you can change it to Office 2007, 2013 or 2016, or you can leave it at 2003, but it will spit out the file with the name Microsoft Excel file as .xlx file. After 2007 and 2010 and 2013 and 2016, it is spitting out the file called xlxx or docx, right? Or pptx. Before that, it was only ppt or doc or xlx or xls, not xlxx. But let's say if I want to spit it out on Office 2010 and onwards, which is equally compatible with 2013 and 16. So let's do this. But before I do that, I think I need to have a file ready made, empty file ready made. So I'll go into my, let's say, my documents. Let's choose what's inside this. Nothing, probably garbage. I'll just check it out. I can get rid of this. New Microsoft Excel worksheet. It is asking me what's the name you want to change it. I'll just say customers. If I'll do that, customers will be spit out. So I will get the path of this file. So let's say if I'll just say copy as path, it's asking me what is the path of it. So I'll just paste that path here. This is the path that it has found, and it is Excel 2007 and onwards. Okay, so it is not liking the quotes, so I'm just gonna remove the quotes. Okay, so let me change it to 2013. Let's see what it says. Okay, I think it was not recognizing the file. So I need to make sure that it recognizes the file. Let's see if I can change it to an Excel file. File, save as. Just for its comfort zone, I'm going to change it to Excel older version. Okay, let's see if it is comfortable with that. So I'm going to change it to an Excel older version just because it's an older software. Import export wizard is getting very old as well. So I'll say browse, and here are there are two Excel files with the same name, but literally you can see one of them is XLS file, which is 1907 to 2003 version, and this one is 2007 and onwards. So if it is not comfortable, I will give it as this path. So I'm just going to change it. So remember this is an older version, so I can change it to an older version as well if it is happy. And it is saying that your first column will be the column name, and obviously my first column is the column name, so I'm happy with that. Okay, so now it is happy. I'm able to move to the next step. Copy the data from one or more tables. So I'll say okay. Which table I want to get the data from? Customers. And behind the scenes, it is doing some magic for me. If I'll click on edit mapping, it is actually creating some SQL for me, which will eventually spit out the data. After creating the table, it will spit out the data into Excel file. So it is going to create a temporary table in Excel and spit out the data. Behind the scenes, it is trying to read from your table and try to understand your schema and trying to make sure what is the best data type it will fit in when it will spit out to Excel. It is long text, varchar. So it is not exactly getting enough information from SQL Server, but it is trying to, based on the data, is trying to make a best guess of what the data type could be. And that's the best guess it has made. So it is saying that the source has the customer ID column. I will make a customer ID column. I will make it as a varchar, but I know that it is not varchar. It was made with the character 3, but it's a little stupid in that sense that it is not able to guess 100% what it is, but it is very close, fairly close to what it thinks. So it is trying to make the best guess, and I will give it a little bit of margin of error on there. And then I can preview the data. So this is how it will spit out the data on Excel sheet. And here is the benefit of using import export wizard. I am not missing out on the data. I'm not missing out on 0. I still have 05. So you see the difference between copy and paste is that you are not losing the data. So it is just showing me the preview of first 10 or 100 records. It's not going to show me all the table here. So I can spit out more tables here if I want. It will be in the next tab. Let's do that while we are here. And let's do that. It is doing the mapping for me automatically and creating some kind of SQL behind the scenes. I'm going to say next. Well, okay, it has some warnings, but I will leave it at that. I'm not going to worry about that for now. Click next, and I'll say run immediately. There is something called SSIS, but it's a whole chapter or a topic to learn in Microsoft SQL Server, so I'm not going into that, but I will run this immediately. This is the summary that your source location is your server. It is going to be spit out in this Excel file, and it will copy all the rows from the customer table, from this table, and from this table, and it will be spitting it out. So let's say finish. Problem. Okay, let's say, I think because I did not close it. So go back, finish. I did not close that Excel file. So because that Excel file was open, it was not able to write. So your Excel file that you are writing to has to be closed. And here is that the report. All the 13 rows from the SQL server for this table are transferred, from this table is transferred, from this table is transferred. Finished. So now if I go here, open up this older file, or a new file actually, I think new file. I spit it out to the new file. Oh, the older 97 2003. Yeah, first sheet is garbage, so I can delete that. But look at this. I have the customer table, I have the invoice table, I have the invoice line table, and I have the invoices table. Notice that I haven't lost too much of data. It is trying to keep the customers or the rep IDs 05 intact. I still lost a little bit with this. So the best thing is writing the import and export wizard by your own hand. But what I want to give you was the initial feel of how you can import and export the data in and out of SQL Server. Copy and paste works, but not all the time. You will be getting the data from different systems. You will have issues importing the data into your server, and you will have issues importing the data out of your server. There will not be all the time that you will have, let's say, 1200 rows, 1000 rows are imported successfully, 200 rows are still having an error. You have to figure out which column is causing you a grief. Where is your issue lies? In a smaller data set, very easy to fix. In a bigger data sets, harder to fix. The more closer you get in your source first before you import the data into SQL Server, so that is, you have to force as a business to the business, you have to force it that why it is getting delayed. Why it is getting delayed? They may ask you why the data is not available in SQL Server so far, or not till today. We have the legacy data, everything is corrected, everything is the correct data. No, it is not, because the rep ID was 5 and I need to change it to 05. Those small niggles have to be fixed before you bring the data into SQL Server, because the last thing that you want is to have the corrupted data in your master table and then you are fixing that master table. You don't want to be touching the live data. You fix the data outside. Once it's fixed, bring it in the test environment or the development environment. Has it been successfully brought in into the dev and test environment? Yes, then we will bring it into the live environment. So importing and exporting the data out is not as easy as it looks. I'm doing it for a very small data set. You will have to do it for the larger data sets, and you will have somebody's name O'Connor. So O'Connor has O and then apostrophe. SQL Server will think that O and opening quote and the closing quote of the O means that the statement is finished. No, but the correct name is O'Connor. So you will have to make sure that SQL Server does not error out on those or stumble upon on those or small rocks in the data. You fix that. If somebody's name is like that, incorporate that or think of it as a name, right? So there will be so many different varieties that you will see in the live data. And I always see that, oh, why my code is not running? Why my code is not running? Because somebody's name was O'Connor and I was stumbled upon that. So I have to fix out that if you see a quote in the value of the row, add an extra quote so that you don't stumble upon that quote or on that data. Just giving you a small example of grieveness. So think of it, if somebody's name is like this, it is messing up the whole row because it thought that the name is or the SQL statement for the name is ended here. So this is considered as an extra. So you need to make sure that you put, if you encounter this kind of a row, you need to provide an extra quote so that one quote is used for the name and the other quote is used for the completion of it. So you will see these kind of issues in the data. Right now it's very easy to look at somebody's names are very small and simple, but I'm giving you some real world issues with the data. So you can bring in the data like this. So let's come back to the chapters. Exercises. My question to you guys, when we learned in introduction to database, we learned about, so for you to do homework in module number 2, you will be doing obviously module 2 reading, module 2 reinforce. I think it's just like a module to reinforce. You will have to check it out. Relational data model. You already know what is relational data. What is selecting the primary key? What is primary key? You know that we have, or you guys have gone over on this topic twice. Normalization of database. Once when I was doing it in introduction to database, when I created a crowfoot notation. Remember that crowfoot notation when I covered that? I want you to go back in your notes and reread that. What is crowfoot notation? One to many, one to one to many, many to many, and how we dealt with many to many.